Today we are privileged to be at the apartment, the home of Bob and Monica Voss at the Bella Vista Apartments in Fitchburg. We're on location. We're out of the studio today, which is a change for me. And we're going to be interviewing Bob Voss and Bill Gettins, who grew up in the Plains section of Leominster. And we have a lot of questions to ask the gentlemen, and we're going to enjoy their reminiscences and their remembrances of growing up in the Plains section of Leominster. And my first question, and I think I'll begin with Bob, and then I'll direct it to Bill. The Plains, where is the Plains section of Leominster, Bob?
Plains section starts at the corner of North Main and Main in Leominster and runs down to the Natural River and right across the street at the where the Armory is now. And that's the end of the Plains, and then North Leominster starts there. And the Plains is the Plains because it's so flat all the way down.
Flat area. It is when you think, if you picture Doyle Field, it is a flat area. That whole area in there, yeah, including the evergreen, is flat. Well, you've answered my question about why it was called the Plains. We know where it is, and we know it's called the Plains because it was flat. Bill, when were you kids growing up in the Plains?
It was in the 30s and the 40s we grew up in the Plains.
1930s and 1940s.
Right. Yeah.
So that was it was during the Depression era,
right,
and right in World War II.
And Bob went to St. Leo's School, the first grade, and I went to Pre-Street School, the first grade. Okay, that was just down the bottom. Pre-Street is like almost a line also, the end of Doyle Field that runs over toward North Leominster.
And that's where one of the neighborhood signs is, I think, at the end of Pre-Street,
right.
the North Main Street end, and then the other sign is at the fork where North Main and Main, near the Kentucky Fried Chicken area.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so those two neighborhood signs are there.
Right.
Did you fellows, when you were boys in the neighborhood, did you venture out to French Hill a lot, or to the west side, or to Lincoln Terrace, or to the south end, the other neighborhoods, all the other neighborhoods of Leominster, many of which you haven't mentioned?
I'd say not until we became teenagers. Bicycles, and then you got around. But up until the time you were a teenager, I think we stayed pretty local, right in the area.
And I think every morning, or every good day, you'd find most of your people over in the top part of Doyle Field, in some part of it, either playing ball, running, or playing some kind of games.
Or watching a baseball game, or
Yeah.
watching the football team practice. One day, Syke got on a train. Train used to go through there about 5 miles an hour. New York, New Haven used to go through there. Syke jumped on a train one day, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's going nuts, and he got on the train on the left side of the Wellington, and by the time he hit Pre-Street, he was off the train, but everybody in the neighborhood was looking for him.
Now,
I did those things then.
Yeah, right.
don't try this. We have to say to the kids, don't try this at home, right?
Right.
The train still, but not to the
Right.
degree that they want. Do they
No.
still?
No,
They
they
don't.
don't use that
I'm
track
thinking
now.
That track
Yeah.
that runs by Doyle Field no longer is active, right?
It's closed.
It's there, but it's not active.
Yeah,
Right. Right, but in those days it was active.
Oh, very,
Trains were
very.
very important.
Right.
Bill, you mentioned just in the little conversation we had before we started the interview officially that something about the Wellington and some props before the
My great-grandfather, Patrick J. Sheehan, he came to this country, he was 14 years old. By the time he was like 27, he bought property on Green Street, 53 Green Street, where he built his house and raised 7 or 8 children there. And when Wellington was built in 1895, which is some 20 years later after he had built his house, and he sold at least part of that land to the Wellington Company to build that piano factory there. And he was very proud of that building, by the way, and it's still a very nice looking building.
It is. And that, the Wellington Piano Factory, I remember it when I was growing up, it was Selligs. It was a
Yes,
But
that's what
prior
it
to
changed to
that-
afterwards.
Right, and now it is the Wellington
Apartments. Condos, condominiums, you're right, yeah.
Gentlemen, when you were growing up, Doyle Field was Doyle Field completely built then, or?
No, it came in our time.
The top part was, yeah, it came in, the top part was then, but in
31, they laid the first corner.
Yeah.
But probably about 30, I'm not sure, but 32 or 33 is when they probably first used it for games and things. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
in 1941 and 2,
Yeah.
I used to wait at the gate and carry my brother's football bag up to
Okay.
up to
Okay.
Green Street.
Well, Syke and I used to sit on the sidewalks in those days, in the early 30s, I'm talking 30, 30,
And after the
34.
high school game.
Yeah, before the high school game, the Leominster High Band used to march down the street, well, the pom-pom girls and the cheerleaders and all that stuff, and the band, and blue and white all the way down the road, and all the kids would line the street and watch the band come down, right? And in back of the band was Charlie Broderick and his 34 Oldsmobile, or 33 Oldsmobile, whatever it was, right? We always saw him driving down, with Kachowski in those days, right? And then the game would begin. But it was a very festive Saturday, every Saturday afternoon, right?
It was
The
a
street-
big day.
It was a big day.
And I imagine the crowd was very, very
It
large.
was very big.
Yeah.
Of course, we had guys like Ronnie Kale
Yeah.
that drew a few people to the ball games.
Yeah, famous name in Leominster.
Yeah, right. Later years, we had Skippy Salvatore, Mike Fantozzi, and some good guys too. Right, it's like, yeah.
The, so I remember reading a little article. I don't know. I can't think of the old newspaper clipping, but it was, I think, an old newspaper clipping perhaps. And I remember an elderly lady telling me about, as a little girl, she was sitting, I guess, on Green Street, and told on the steps of her home, and told her father that, Dad, they're moving the houses. Do you remember anything about that? They actually moved some houses to make the upper field, I guess it would be.
I think that was before our time.
Yep.
Do you remember?
I don't remember it.
But they did move some houses,
I
though.
think there were some houses moved.
Because on the left side, there were houses there before the factory was there.
Ah,
Yeah. In old records of Leominster, in the city directories, there was actually houses along there.
yeah, so
Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
construction itself of the field,
Yeah.
of the Doyle
Yeah.
Field area.
Yeah, because Green Street used to run right down and intersect. I think it did. It used to be an old trotting park down here. It was called the Trotting Park or something down there, where Doyle Field is today, where the baseball area is and where the track is. But the road used to go right down there, and I think it intersected Pre Street, didn't it? Before they
Well,
built
I
the
had to
park?
go over.
Yeah, I think it went straight down.
The tracks
Yeah.
ran across here. Pre Street ran across there.
Yeah, right.
And that was the end of Doyle Field.
Right. Yeah.
And then across the street from that, actually started the sky, because the Clarks lived on the corner of Priest, and in back of their house
Big
was
drop.
Foster Grant.
Right.
Big drop.
And the Scar was down there.
And the sky was down there, and Foster Grant was there.
And the Scar is a place where everybody went to skate.
Skating.
And,
And back at Priest Street School.
and the Scar was a loop in the Nashua River, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like almost discontinued in the
Right.
floodplain, like, you know.
Right.
But it always stayed wet there, and it froze. It was probably about 2 or 3 feet deep, and it was always a good place to skate.
And it was exactly in back of Priest Street School.
Yeah, yeah,
That area.
yeah.
You mentioned the kids in the neighborhood and some of the perhaps the families in the neighborhood. Were there? What was the nationality? We're all Americans, and that's wonderful. But
Primary Irish.
Well, a lot of them were Irish, and then
Yeah.
there was
If you go up and down and see
Cahills, Learys, Rileys, Haleys, O'Donnells,
Merricks,
geez,
right? Sheehan's.
Sheehan's.
We said Darcy.
Then you had the Robbins,
Yeah.
McNally,
Moran.
Case,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Mr. Gillis,
Gillis.
the
Yeah.
man,
Mickey Moore.
and Dr. McHugh.
McHugh. Yeah. Yeah.
so it was so typical that the neighborhoods there were national origin.
Right, exactly.
That would have been what maybe
Anybody could have
first.
moved there.
Yes, yes, but
It was predominantly Irish, though.
But
Yeah.
yes.
It could have.
When you fellas got to, did you go to Gallagher Junior High eventually? When
Yes,
you,
we did.
Once
I
you
did.
Yeah, we both
from
did.
St. Leo's
Yeah.
and then from
I went
Street.
from St. Leo's to Gallagher also.
And then you probably mixed with kids from other sections
Oh,
of town.
yes.
I met the whole town
Met the
there.
whole town, which was a
I went
very
to
good
7th
thing.
grade there. He came in the 9th from St. Leo's, right?
Yes.
You went there in the 7th and you picked up all the people from all over town, and it gave you, it really broadened your horizons
Right.
immediately. You get to know everybody in all the other sections of the town.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is really what happens today, which
Yeah,
is,
right.
which
That
is
was-
a wonderful
That was
thing.
really great.
What did you fellas do as kids when you got old enough to have like maybe a little job, a paper route or things like that? Did you have any tasks like that where you could earn money or?
Oh,
Uh,
Psych
I
a
had
big
lots
fa-
of jobs.
Yeah.
And Psych.
Yeah, Psych.
That's
It's his
Bob's nickname.
Right,
right.
How did you get that? Do you remember how you got that nickname?
Through my brother
Yeah.
and through his father. Yeah,
Ah.
through our father.
Yeah.
They used to call him Cyclone and then the Psych and
Ah.
Psych. And I had a paper route. Then I worked for Frank Gaffney, the drugstore next to the Rialto, when they got the junior high.
Yeah.
That's, where the Christian Center is
Yes,
now?
yeah.
That used to be the Rialto Theater.
Right, yeah. I
And
remember.
right next to the theater, there was a hole in the wall. Frank Gaffney's drugstore.
Yeah, right
And that's
in
where I started. Then I worked in Endicott shoe store and Good Hughes restaurant with my sister. I had a lot of, always working so I could get clothes and stuff like that through school.
That was a bakery.
I wasn't-
I had a paper route also, and I went to work for Foster Grant afternoons. We used to load trucks. You could do that in those days. You could get a job before you were 16 years old in those days, So we loaded trucks.
And did you need a work permit or
I
something
don't
of that
think
sort?
so.
Do you
When you get to be 16, then a law came along. You had to be 16. I think perhaps you're right. I think we did have to have a work permit. But I think it was after 16 we got the work permit. I don't remember having one before. But we used to load trucks in the afternoon. The shipping room, they leave the stuff there for us. We'd go for 3 hours in the afternoon and load trucks.
So you boys then you kept busy, very very
Yeah.
very, very, very busy.
I forgot I had a magazine route. I used to have the Colliers and the American magazine or something like that. I had like 145 magazines. That was a lot of magazines.
You would
Yeah.
you'd have to
Johnny Cabri.
Yeah.
Johnny Cabri.
We'd leave Merriam Avenue.
From
We'd
Bell's
leave
to-
Merriam
yeah.
Avenue in the morning and never get back till night.
That's right.
And it's the Leominster News Agency
Yeah, right.
now, but
The
from
Leominster
that
News.
from that particular location, that's been a news
That's
agency
right.
for
Yeah,
as long
it's
as I
not-
can remember.
That's right. Now Bigelow's, yeah.
And the paper then was the Leominster Enterprise,
Yeah,
right?
right,
exactly,
And then the Sentinel and that. And
Right.
They merged, the Sentinel,
Yeah.
Leominster
They
Sentinel
were two
Enterprise.
separate papers when we used
Yes.
to deliver them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't by any chance remember how many papers you had on your route? I know former
Numerous.
paper boys sometimes remember that.
I had
100?
Oh, I would say, I wouldn't say 100, wouldn't I used to have to push a cart. And
Yeah.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I have to go in the 50 area. I'm not going to say I can remember how many.
I moved to North Leominster.
And
my-
then I put in a plug for Victory Market. When Victory Market was down on Mechanic Street, years and years ago,
Yeah.
I worked there for a couple of months.
Another. Speaking. Go ahead.
Unlike his paper route, I moved to North Leominster when I was young, and then I papered in North Leominster, and the main street was okay, but the side streets like Pierce Street, Burge Avenue, and places like that, you would have probably a half a mile between houses in those days. So when you had like 15 papers on Pierce
Wow.
Street, you probably covered 3 miles.
Yeah.
For 15
Mine
customers.
were all next to each other.
Right. In that neighborhood.
That's
And
why I got bigger legs than these guys.
And that's true because now the image I have of that area,
It's all
the houses are
houses,
close
yeah.
together, but
It's all
in those
different now.
days
No,
it wasn't.
It was different.
It was different. I always have to keep that in mind.
Right.
Today, when we go to supermarkets, and you mentioned Victory, and just before I get into that, where the Victory executive offices are
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
on
Main Street.
Main Street.
That's where the trash is.
Yeah.
Were there, I know at one time, because I've seen old photographs, there were huge greenhouses along there. Do you remember at any time some greenhouses along there where they grew?
I remember the houses. Bob McHenry.
Yeah.
Do you remember Bob McHenry? Did his father move there and take care of them? Because right next, I don't swear there were
Greenhouse.
greenhouses,
Yeah.
but right down, they could have been because the tracks are right there.
Yeah, right.
Yes, right by the tracks.
Yes.
And I think whoever owned them grew produce.
I'll say I don't think they were very active at that, because I think we would have really remembered it.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But I think at one time prior to that, I think
Might have been active.
A lot of,
Yeah.
there were a lot of greenhouses
In that area.
They were raising produce for the local market, and I think even for Boston.
Yeah.
I think they bring them down to Boston, I think.
Might have been, yeah.
The grocery stores, in those days, there weren't supermarkets.
No.
There were the local markets, pretty much. What were some of the, do you
Well, we
remember
had
any
the
of the
red and
markets?
white Smith store on Whitman
Smith
Street.
store.
And your mother used to be able to pick up the telephone and call in her order, right? Call the order in, and then send the kids to get the order, right?
Yeah.
And the guys would take the order over the telephone.
Ah,
So all you had to do was go pick up the bags and take them home.
And then there was Henry Murray, the corner of Harrison and Morton.
Right.
And he was a
the
nice man.
Three-decker there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's,
During tough times, he'd let you get something, and when you get the money, you could bring it to him.
yeah.
Some of the other interviews I've done, that theme has,
Yeah,
that has
people
come
like
up,
Yeah.
you know,
We got
they
three
would,
markets. There was one at the Cross and Robinson's, right? Then,
Yeah, that was at the
then other-
beginning.
Yeah, right, then the other two. But they would all do that. 'Cause people
Right,
didn't
they
have the
would
money, they put it on the
credit and
slip.
the-
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What a difference. They let you take it, and you go back and pay
Yeah,
him.
they trust
right,
you. Yeah.
Right, there was a lot of trust involved.
Yeah, right.
Which was a wonderful thing, and
It
it
really
still
was.
exists today. But it is the times
that
have,
way.
Yeah.
times have
You
changed
have to look
a
for
lot. Today, it's very often very impersonal. You don't know the person that you're dealing with at the checkout counter. Where in those days, you probably saw them.
It was all
almost every
self-contained.
day.
People
It was
on the plane.
self-contained.
Yeah. Everybody did practically all the shopping in those three stores, except once in a while go up to Victory on, what was that, Mechanics? What's that street?
When the Durana was first started, they were on Mechanic
Mechanic
Street.
Street, yeah.
Then AMP came in over on where Century 21 is. Remember
Yeah.
AMP was
Yeah.
there for a while?
Yeah.
That was the first
Big
major
store.
store, I
Right,
think.
yeah.
AMP.
Brockman's. And Brockman's
The
was down there.
Brockman's,
Yeah,
oh my
Brockman's was
God.
down there. Get
Right on.
a dozen donuts for 19
Yeah.
cents.
Brockman's, that was the one.
Now, do you remember when Brockelman's, I think it was, got the donut machine, the automatic donut machine,
Yes.
which was a big,
Yeah.
big.
They had that right in the
deal.
front window.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah.
Right across the street, we used to get Kennedy's peanut butter.
That's right.
Remember?
Yeah. They had an egg and what's it
Butter
called
and
store? Egg and butter store.
I
Yeah.
remember
That was a
as
great
kid
store.
walking by
Ames's.
that
Ames's.
near where I don't know what bank, it used to be where the Merchants
It was
Bank
Boston
was.
Fruit, and it was Ames right in that section, right along in there.
I'd always look at
Kresge's.
the big oranges and that,
Yeah.
and the tubs of peanut butter.
Right. That was a great place.
Your school experiences, when you, it's St. Leo's School, Bob and Bill at Priest Street, were things like recess and subjects. Can you tell us a little bit? Can you tell the audience a little bit about what your experience was like in school?
I don't remember the subjects too much, but the recess was always great. The guys from the carbine, when they used to play ball in the backyard, baseball and basketball, on the left side of Priest Street School. It's kind of a flat spot there. But except, everybody walked to school, though. I think the guys from the carbine took the bus, but I think everybody else that went to Priest Street, I think, walked.
So,
Yeah.
So probably one bus a day came to that school.
so the children from the Carbine neighborhood used to
Take a bus.
take a bus to Priest Street.
Right.
That's where they went to
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
And
And everybody from the plains would walk to that
Everybody from the plains walked. I walked to St. Leo's. You walked home for lunch, too. You didn't stay there for lunch.
school. That's right.
You walked home for lunch and you came right back.
and then back.
It was like getting home and coming back.
Yeah. There were no cafeterias.
Right.
And
And
that was it as far as St. Leo's went.
then-
Except when they had benefits, and then they gave you books of chances. I went all over town selling them so I could win a bike.
Yeah, right.
So in those days, there were the neighborhood schools, and there was very little busing.
Right.
And today,
Yeah.
it's the schools are pretty much consolidated, and
They all,
almost
all kinds of
the
buses.
kids are
Exactly.
bus.
Yeah.
So that's a big change.
right.
What did you fellas do for entertainment besides the times you were working, or what were some of the games, sports, activities that you did when you had free time? When you weren't on your paper route or working here, there, or in school?
Well, it was rowdy baseball, if you want to put it.
Right, yeah.
Or even after supper, there was always games over in Doyle Field. And we'd go over, but a whole bunch of kids would go to the games.
It would be a pickup game. Somebody would have a bat, somebody would have a ball, somebody would have a glove.
Yeah.
And I think the guy with the bat used to become the captain. They had something to play with.
And your parents wouldn't put you in the car and bring you here, there, everywhere for all these organized sports. I'm being facetious because I know that that's relatively recent.
You didn't have a car.
No.
You didn't have a car.
You could just walk down.
And the sports were pretty much not organized.
That's right. You used to walk down in pickup games.
Right.
Pickup
Everything
games.
was pickup.
Even a football game's a pickup game.
And there was never any shortage.
Whoever had the football was the captain of that sport.
Never any shortage of things to do.
No.
You mentioned
Now this is from, not just from our Green Street. These would be to the kids would be over from Whitman Street, Grand Street, Harrison Street. They'd all congregate.
that would be
It just wasn't one street.
Yeah.
It was the whole group of
Plains.
streets in the
in
plains.
the plains.
Martin Street,
Yeah.
Free Street. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember any other big events at Doyle Field? I mean, any big celebrations or any extra special events that happened during that era? Can you recall anything?
They had a big
Seeing
celebration.
Ronnie Cahill play football.
Yeah, that was you could pass practically the whole into the field and put the ball right in the guy's hands. But I think they had a celebration on Leominster, like, was it 1740? Leominster was 1740. Must have been 1940. They had a 200th anniversary or something, right? They had a big celebration at Doyle Field, all kinds of lights at night and everything. And that particular night, Ronnie Cahill did some passing just for an exhibition that night. And that was fantastic for all the guys who were just getting to know him, kind of thing at that time, right? And then, I remember that big celebration there, just a whole ballpark, football field, the big
He
bowl.
lived right across the street from the Grand Street gate.
Right.
So Ronnie Cahill was from the Plains,
He
Right.
lived right across the street from the gate.
Yeah, right.
Ah.
Yeah.
from the Grand Street gate.
Yeah.
They say he hardly ever showed up for practice. He was a natural, and he just come to when the game just before the game started. He'd show up and play a beautiful game. He wasn't nervous or anything. Never got himself really all riled up before the game. Okay. Yeah. I think the band assembled probably right at the corner of Main Street and Green, right? It's like
Yeah.
and then marched down the
Then
street.
they marched down to the street. And then after the game, they'd start at the gate where the clubhouse is.
Right.
They'd start at the gate, then march up Green Street. Then sometimes they march right up to town. Up to
Usually
the square.
victorious.
Yeah. Yeah, always,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
All right.
Leominster was already psyched up before the game started. They had guys like Americo, they had Toccoletti, of course they had Ronnie Cahill, they had Mitch Lemoyne, they had guys that were really good ball
Tommy
players.
Rock.
Tommy Rock, great guys. Great
Billy
football.
Ray.
Yeah, Billy Ray, yeah, good football player. Skippy Salvatore in later years.
And then-
Yeah.
Then coming out.
Johnny Bigelow,
Yeah. And then coming out,
Louis Barassi.
then as the parade was going past the Wellington, you'd get more kids following him back.
Yeah.
You know, to go up the street.
Yeah.
All going like this.
Yeah,
Games were always Saturday afternoon.
right. And it was usually always packed. I mean, Thanksgiving was overflowing, but it was usually always packed during any other game.
Excuse
Because
me.
there was that great following in the 30s for the Leominster High football. Great following. And also in the 40s. You know, Ronnie was a great passer. Once again, he was a big hunter and fisherman, right? And he used to love to go hunting and fishing. I think he used to quiet his nerves. Prior to games, he'd go off somewhere, hunting or fishing many times. And just before the game would start, he would show up. And by then the coach would be a little unnerved, maybe wondering whether he was going to show or not. But he'd show and he'd be usually calm, cool, and collected. It probably is what made his game so good. Didn't get too psyched up before.
Are there any other particular fond memories you have from that era?
Well, I can remember a fellow by the name of Butch Quinn, who was no longer with us, but we were in first grade. And Butch, when he grew up, he got to be a guy about 5'1". He was a cheerleader. And we were in the first grade. He came to school one day, and he had the largest shoe size in the school. He had a man size 1. Everybody else was still wearing shoes, 9, 10s, and 11s, children's size shoes. But he never grew any bigger than that.
All I can say is, as far as I'm concerned, I was very happy there, and the people were,
Great.
the people there probably gave me, try to make you grow up better because they were always pretty kind. They weren't mean people. They weren't.
And did if a kid were doing something wrong on the street, did other people kind
You
of
get help for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they.
We had a fellow by the name of Mickey Moore. Didn't he?
Oh.
I forgot. If you stepped out of line with Mickey Moore, you get back in the line in about 28 seconds. He'd give you a slap across the face and straighten you out and send you home.
Yeah, yeah. And would your parents get upset with Mickey Moore? Or
No,
would
we
they
wouldn't
say-
tell him.
wouldn't
Yeah,
tell him?
no, that's true. You wouldn't tell him. That's true. You wouldn't tell him.
Well, the reason it was done, we knew he was like that.
That's right. Yeah.
We knew he was like that.
Yeah.
Little fuse.
Right. Yeah.
He'd go in his
Shot
yard, we
fuse.
knew he was going to get mad.
Yeah.
So what we'd do is step
Tease
over
him.
his yard. Yo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they came out. He lived right next to Jackie LeBoy.
Yeah, right. Used to tease him. I remember Jackie. Yeah.
But then you stayed away from him for a while.
Right.
Now, did you fellas, were you of the in the 40s? How old were you were you in high school then?
40, we were both 12.
Both 12. So
Right around there.
that was the
Yeah.
war
Yeah.
era. Did a lot of fellas from the plains go into the service?
yeah, sure.
in the-
Yeah.
You were in the Navy too, weren't you?
Yeah.
But did a lot of them serve in World War II? I imagine they
Oh yeah.
did.
Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of them did. Cases, right?
Oh, yeah.
The whole up Grand Street, Harris, a lot of guys, yeah. Benson and all those guys, yeah.
Everybody.
Do you have any other things that you'd like to share with us as we bring this interview on the plains to a close? Anything else you'd like to, any reminiscences?
Only
you'd
thing
like
about
to
that
share?
railroad one day, somebody's dog got hit. Remember that? Somebody's dog got hit by the train. The trains go by 5 miles an hour. That's all about there, you know. Hit somebody's dog, and the railroad engineer stopped the train, got off the train, and hollered to us kids, "Who owns this dog? Anybody know whose dog this is?" Imagine that. Stop the train. Ask, "Who owns this dog?" I want, tell a person that I hit his dog, kind of thing, right? And at any rate, they discovered who owned the dog. And the owner came running out, and by the time the guy got there, the dog got up and ran down the street. The dog was okay, the train continued, and the life kept on going.
Well, your memories, you seem to have very, very pleasant, fond memories of growing up in the
Oh,
plains
yeah.
section of
Very.
It was a fun place.
It was. I think it was a fun bringing up. Yeah, it was. Don't regret it if that's what you mean.
Excellent. No, I didn't mean that, but
No,
I mean,
no,
it's
no.
very, very
Oh, yeah.
happy memories, and we thank Bob Syke Voss and Bill Gettins for sharing their reminiscences.
I'll give you another quick one, though. Just running up and down the street, like they said, going for noontime for lunches and stuff, but going back to Pre-Street and so forth. Kids would fall from time to time on the street, and some of the streets weren't all that great. They had a lot of, like, broken cement on the side, and tar on the side of them, like coarse stuff, like almost like coal dust, and they'd fall down and stuff like that. And along the way, mothers would run into anybody's house, and they'd put mercurochrome or something on your leg, or whoever fell down, right? People would take care of the kids all the way down the street. And
Yeah.
it just happened that way.
Yeah,
There was
it
no
was.
problem.
Yeah.
Just go ring the doorbell and say, "Hey, I got a scratch," and they take care of you.
Close-knit
Yeah.
neighborhood.
It's very good.
Yeah. And that seems fairly typical of that era,
Yeah.
which was a very nice time to grow up.
Yeah. It's good to think we can think back almost 75 years.
I know it.
And see everybody on the street like it was yesterday, right, Syke?
God.
Honest to God. It's funny.
Again, Bob Syke, Voss, Mr. Voss, we thank you. And Mr. Gettins, Bill Gettins, we thank you.
Pleasure.
Both gentlemen for sharing your fond memories of the plains section of Leominster. And we wish to thank Leominster Access TV, Kyle Pimerini and Jack Sully, who are here today running things very, very expertly as usual. And we want to also thank Mrs. Voss for having us here today. So thank you very, very much.